to call people parasites, but when you yourself are a parasite to a certain perspective. I mean, if you're like an androcyte on the earth or something, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't poo poo parasites because uh, it turns out the host is also a parasite. It's not just the parasite that's a parasite. What do you think about that, Vadim?
It's a technical term. It's not for lack of compassion or understanding. It's just I'm talking about the economical, like say the money flow or the wealth creation flow. I can say that I'm a parasite because I work for a large corporation that pays me well, but at the same time they have a good reason to do that. So it's hard to say who's a parasite. I mean, I don't think of myself as a parasite. I pay my taxes.
Yeah, it could be projection, but I just like the thought about, parasites and host, and sometimes maybe you don't know which one you are in the relationship. Um, how do you view like American corporations, like founded by Americans, across all the categories versus like international corporations working in the US, or even Google, or let's say, Microsoft having so many Indian and H-1B visa key executives, top software developers? Isn't that just like the efficient market economy and the most efficient model for growth and opportunity? Is this kind of like international management of primary US based corporations? Like, what's the is there like is there a critique of, I guess, Indian Indians in key positions in major US corporations?
Well, I'm not the economist. I'm at best a good amateur. Uh, and, I like Thomas Sowell, for example. I basically agree with most of what he has to say. So I can imagine that he would say, whatever is driven by pure economic mechanisms is probably good. Whatever is free from the government coercion is good. So if things are, if it's laissez-faire capitalism and it just flows naturally, then it's probably good. My only concern about this line of thought is that, as the economist, he's not a psychologist and he's not a historian. I think when we talk about civilizations and their long-term perspectives and long-term survival, I think the economic mechanism and economic reasoning is not the only one that should be taken into account. So I believe in such a thing as, the way, so Thomas Sowell goes as far as saying, if it's more profitable to outsource and use some foreign companies, it's financially cheaper. I think he literally said that somewhere like basic economics. It's financially cheaper to basically put people on welfare in your own country. If you just simply count the dollars and count the money flow, you decide, well, actually we can afford to put them on welfare. Well, I happen to disagree with that because I think if you take into account the human psyche, the whole level of demoralization and degradation that you can, impose on the whole nation can be so dangerous that if you think of the long-term survival of this nation, it's horrific. So yeah, I absolutely believe that a certain level of protectionism is absolutely necessary, even if it goes against the immediate profit or even economic development. I think it's important to have all American companies. I think it's important to hire more Americans, and probably, yes, you have to pay them more than you would pay Indians or Chinese otherwise, but that's just basically essential. I think we just have some, I would say, ideological or political value to offer to the world, and I would like this project to continue on for as long as it possibly can. So, yeah, that's my.
So, do you have a critique of a fiat-based society, fiat-based, currency, and uh, how do you rationalize, you know, I guess, unethical currency manipulation?
I don't. I don't. I really can't. I literally can't find no excuse for it. How about you?
I like the saying there's not a speck of dust out of place in the whole universe. Um, and I also like the saying to know all is to forgive all. So, you know, you never know till you know. And it's easy to think that somebody is a snake in the grass. But you also don't know that person's wisdom or experiences. And until you really meet somebody, um, who has like an incredible presence, you hope the ethics match up with that person's presence, meaning it's like a perfect person. Um, but, again, you don't know till you know. So I'm just saying that I like my analogy of the Federal Reserve being a bookie, having their own platform to lend and to engage in arbitrage or gambling or speculative transactions. And it's nice to think that, Chairman Powell is the face of our Federal Reserve. But there's a lot of people that he knows, and that he associates with. It's a big world. I just live in my little bubble. I don't know billionaires in France. I don't know billionaires in Germany. I don't know billionaires in Italy. I don't know billionaires from Russia. But, you know, if you are that upper crust and you are that wealthy, I'm sure you have a role in the relationships or the communication. And I'm just saying, how un-American is the Federal Reserve if we believe it's this, parasite, a specter, or a shadow cartel, or a shadow Congress? Um, I'm just saying, if you were on the inside, you might not. I've met people that worked at Federal Reserve, and their PhDs, they're basically academics, and they spend a lot of time doing research. But to me, it just seems like a jobs program. They're not really creating anything. So that's why I say I think it's primarily a communication organization, a research organization. But they really do have, tools, mechanisms, levers to pull, buttons to push. They, in many ways, control the economy, or they're fixing a standard of what they believe is an optimal model. And it's easy to get angry about anything. But that's why I say, I'm just trying to accurately describe the situation, uh, for political purposes primarily, but hopefully to awaken people uh, to a taxation crisis and a debt and borrowing and spending
that would
crisis.
produce vehicles. What's that? Go ahead. I think I lost you.
So, Vadim, what I'm trying to say is I don't have anything to say other than, I'm just a little fish in a little pond in a big ocean. And, I'm trying to analyze the entire ocean, but, I'm still just looking at my little pond. So take it all with a grain of salt.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, me too. Um, no billionaire friends for sure. But I invest like 60% of Americans last time I checked. So in that sense, I'm more typical than atypical, and I see that generally speaking, investment allows me to preserve my savings and overall beat the inflation and even maybe get ahead. But I also understand that technically speaking, the central bank as the Federal Reserve is something that basically it's a legalized theft of our money by printing more currency. That's what it is. And so for those Americans who don't invest, I can only imagine like this 40%, let's say, they literally keep their money in the bank and they see how every freaking year the value of their money goes down, 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 down. And that's number one. And the second thing, which I find important, is just I see to what extent the Federal Reserve is used and central bank is used as a political tool, basically, to manipulate the electorate. And I just can't imagine that healthy economy would even allow such manipulation, which means that probably there is something deeply unhealthy about our system.
There's a program here at Singer Wealth that does it down in South Florida, and he broke down that for the average person that inherits, let's just say they did an easy number of $1 million, and they had to wait. And I don't remember, it wasn't that many years.